Your fight with Conor, I think, was the biggest fight in UFC history. That's for sure. Well, actually, in all of sports, do you think there will ever be another fight of that magnitude in the UFC? Is it even possible?
Well, let's look at the history here. I mean, our sport is still very young. Say 35 years old, starting from the 90s. Put it this way. Take, for example, the sport most similar to MMA, which is, well, let's say boxing. How old is boxing? 150 years? Like when you think boxing, what pops into your head? Thriller in Manila?
Yeah. Well, I love Mike Tyson a lot too, so.
Well, Tyson had big fights, but Mike Tyson never had that signature rival like Muhammad Ali had in Joe Frazier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he just didn't have one. I mean, who do we have? Evander Holyfield? Look, Holyfield Tyson is no Muhammad Ali. Take Ali and Frazier, Thriller in Manila, right? People called it the greatest rivalry. And it still is. In the 20th century, there was nothing that could compare. In the 21st century, the only thing you could compare to it, purely based on the numbers, is Pacquiao and Mayweather. Yes, there was public interest, but there wasn't the energy that there was with Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier.
Yeah, if I can just pause for a second, I'll check on Perplexity.
Mm-hmm.
List of biggest boxing fights of all time. It's Ali and Frazier, like you said.
Yeah.
The first, the third.
Well, when he lost. And then the third fight, the Thriller in Manila.
And Foreman, I must say Ali versus Foreman.
Well, Foreman, that was the year, I think, 74, right?
The fight was watched by up to 1 billion people worldwide.
Yeah. It was one of those things. Politics got mixed into it, too.
Yeah.
It was actually a very big fight.
Sugar Ray Leonard, Duran, Sugar Ray Leonard versus Thomas Hearns, Hagler versus Hearns.
Well, Hagler and Duran in Montreal.
Yeah.
Sugar Ray Leonard and Duran in Montreal, when they fought, when he admitted after the fight that he lost the mental game and broke down before the fight. But then Sugar Ray beat him later.
Yeah, he came back and won.
Yeah. Well, if you look at it out of everything that stands out, I think you can mention Frazier and Muhammad Ali. And there was also Joe Louis against the German Max Schmeling. Hitler stood behind Schmeling and Roosevelt stood behind Louis. For those who don't know this story, I just watched it recently. It was something incomparable. They were so big. They were two of the most famous athletes of their time. Roosevelt was promoting Joe Louis, you know. At that moment for America, it was like something incredible that a white president was promoting a black world champion. And on the other hand, Hitler stood behind Schmeling.
It was what, 1936, 1938 that
They fought twice?
Twice.
Yeah. They fought 2 times.
This wasn't just a good boxing match, just a good fight. This was politics. Those were nations.
This was politics, this was nations.
Everything.
It all came together.
And it's the same thing with Ali, too. Muhammad Ali with the Vietnam War, all that stuff.
Yes.
And and even religion is tied into it. Everything here came together.
They simply went beyond sports.
Yeah.
It was the exact same thing when I fought Conor. That fight went beyond our sport. It impacted every sport because athletes of all kinds of different sports, everyone who loves to compete, it didn't matter if it was football, basketball, soccer, or boxing. Everyone was following this. And honestly, will there be a fight like that? Well, it's hard for me to say, but I think it'll happen. It'll happen for sure. There will always be champions, there will always be rivalries. But when it'll happen, that's just a matter of time.
So it's not entirely about the athletes, it's about everything combined.
Yeah, it's everything combined. The way he talked, what he stirred up, the lines he crossed, touching on family, religion. And then somehow, on one side, you had Conor, this really interesting champion who knew how to hype himself up. And on the other side, you had this undefeated somebody from nowhere, from the mountains. You know how it is. It all somehow, all of it just kind of happened naturally. And it wasn't staged. It was real. We had a real rivalry, unlike the way a lot of people now just hype up interest in a fight. But people feel that energy. It doesn't go anywhere. People can tell what's real and what's fake. And because of that, we went beyond our own sport. That's what made this fight so massive.
Well, when you look into your heart back then and now, did you have anger? Did you have hatred for him?
Back then and even now, I'd still keep a cool head. Nothing has changed. When you let your emotions take over, when they're off the charts and you completely lose control, that's a very bad place to be. So you'll tire out faster. You'll fall for any kind of bait and so on. I just knew that I needed to stay calm, composed, to stick to the plan no matter what happened and not go beyond my emotional limits. This is a very, very dangerous moment when you give in to your emotions. You have to control them. Every single detail, every little thing has to be perfectly in place. The second you let it all slip, everything becomes a total mess. So once the fight was finally done, I just let all my emotions out. I had to step right in and prove it, and punish him, and show them I'm better, that I'm better than him, and put a final end to this whole bitter rivalry. When all of that was over,
Your emotions came out.
that's where my emotions just went over the edge. But until the fight was completely finished, starting from training, at the press conferences, at the weigh-ins, everywhere, in front of the media, everywhere, I kept myself completely under control. And I was very good at it. Honestly, looking back, it's been almost 8 years now. Looking back, well, I'm a little surprised. At that point, I was a very emotional guy too. Over these 8 years, a lot has happened in my life. But I'm surprised that I kept it together. And, well, it wasn't easy for me to keep myself within my limits, to keep myself under control like that. But here, again, I'll come back to what I said. I was very lucky. My father called me, at that time I was here 2 months before the fight. His advice helped me out so much because for me it was not just that it mattered. It was actually the most important thing for me back then, just to know my father's reaction, how he was taking everything that was happening, because there was just so much media coverage. So I knew my father was watching. It was important for me to know his take. I'd call and ask, and my father would even tell me things I hadn't even asked him about. He'd bring it up on his own. Because the way it is with us, between me and my father, in our traditions, in our part of the world, in our family for generations, in our village, there's just always this distance with your father. Like when you walk in, there are just so many things you can't let yourself do in front of your father. You have to be sort of like a soldier in front of a general, right? If you can even make that comparison, if a soldier stands at attention like that, then with us, it's even stricter. Like even just to give an example here, for instance, imagine you're a father sitting there, right? And your 2-year-old kid walks up to you and wants to play with you. You can't even do that baby talk thing with your own kid.
You don't have that kind of friendship.
It's a friendship, but
It's different, yes.
there's a certain distance that you must keep around your father. You always have to be completely buttoned up.
Yeah.
You have to stand like a soldier in front of your father. You don't let your emotions take over. At that point, just to know what my father thought, who was all the way across the ocean, who couldn't just fly out and be there to support his son and just be there by my side. But for me, since he didn't have a visa, I just had to know exactly what he thought. I didn't care what anyone else thought. I didn't care about the opinions of millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions watching this fight. I only ever cared about one person and his take, what he thought and what he'd say to me. But I couldn't call him and say, "Father, what do you think about this?" Well, we never had that.
Well, you had to wait.
I would just call and wait to hear what he'd say. And my father, he knew exactly where to draw the line because he was in the exact same position with his own father since his own father was still around. And then he had a son too, right? And he understood me, how I felt about him, since his relationship with his own father was the same way. And in that sense, back then, my father really kept me grounded mentally. He even told me something once. Do you know how diamonds are like actually made under great pressure?
Hmm.
He says you're under great pressure and you have a choice. You can break down and give up, or you can get through it all. Properly, clearly, with dignity. Go in, prepare right, make weight, recover, go in, win, and settle it once and for all. And those exact kinds of moments, they deeply impacted me.
So, because of those words, you could cut everything off.
Yeah,
Focus
well,
mentally.
mentally, like if a million people showed up right there and told me right outside where I was staying at the hotel, right? Like if a million people gathered right under my window and said, hey, we've got your back. And honestly, just one call from my father, it wouldn't even compare. Because that one call from my father, that one piece of advice, his support, his voice, it charged me up way more than absolutely everything else combined.
But I must say, Jose Aldo, who is one of the greatest fighters of all time, and still, Conor was arguably able to psychologically break him.
Yeah,
But with you, it seems like Conor was not able to mentally affect you. Did he manage to get into your head even a little?
no, not at all. I had a clear understanding that physically and mentally I was just way stronger than him. I didn't doubt myself for even 1%. Well, people, they can say whatever they want. He's got a massive fan base too. Maybe they won't agree with that, but the Almighty gave me this unshakable confidence that is just really hard for me to even put into words. And I just deeply believed that I was better than him and that I was stronger than him, and that in this matchup, well, I was supposed to win. I just had this rock solid faith in myself.
Up until that moment, is it fair to say that this was your toughest fight?
Up until that moment,
Correct.
100%. Because fighting's all psychology, you know, it's a mental game. Mentally speaking, that was my toughest fight. At that point, yeah. But a tougher fight came later
With Gagey?
with Gagey.